You look at Minnesota, Minneapolis, we have crime down there because we took out thousands of people, despite all the mess and everything else. But do these people really want to have rapists? Do they really want to have drug dealers and people from prisons and murderers? Do they really want to have them in the community? It's really insurrectionists and agitators, and they're paid. And you can tell a lot of reasons. Number one, they're professionals, with their mouth. But they're also, you look at the signs. The signs are all professionally made. They have signs that are gorgeous. In fact, I want to get the sign because I need a lot of signs for different things, and I want to find out whoever does their signs, they do a beautiful job. Everybody has this beautiful sign with brand new wood. It's like leather panels. They have a leather handle on the bottom. These are not people these are people that are handed signs, and we know pretty much, we're getting very close to it, but we know pretty much who's funding this stuff. These are paid insurrectionists, paid troublemakers.
Welcome back to Posting Through It. I'm Jared.
And I'm Mike.
Off the top, we're going to give a shout out to some Patreon subscribers that gave a little extra. This week, we've got Zach Lutz and Caterbug. Caterbug?
Is that Caterbug?
Caterbug.
I'm going with.
Anyway, you can sign up for our Patreon for $5 a month. You get access to weekly bonus episodes. On the last one, we talked about what's been going on in Minneapolis and the fact that people are really starting to get sick of this shit.
Yes. And also, Curtis Yarvin is worried that someone is going to try to provoke him into violence while he's blogging. That was the other very key detail from that episode.
I asked for listeners to send music if they make it on the last episode, and a few people came through. This week, at a couple points during the show for transition music, you're going to hear some music that Andreas, who's a listener we have in Sweden, makes. He's a one-man shoegaze post-punk electronic project called Dark Star. I listened through some of his catalog, and it's pretty cool stuff.
The four over the A.
Yeah, so it's stylized D4, and then the rest of Dark Star. The song I chose this week is off an EP that he put out last year called Dawns. The track is called Drawn to the Deep End, which that title feels kind of fitting for the show. There will be a link to his Bandcamp page in the episode description, but keep it coming. I love listening to the music that our listeners make, and if we could feature it on the show, I think that's pretty cool.
If I say
in Maine, a federal agent was filmed taunting an anti-ICE protester. What he said raised a lot of eyebrows. He said, "We have a nice little database, and now you're considered a domestic terrorist."
It's not illegal to record.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing.
Yeah, why are you taking my information down?
Because we have a nice little database.
Oh, good.
And now you're considered a domestic terrorist. So
We're videotaping you? Are you crazy?
Naturally, people had some questions. The big one being, is ICE keeping a database of people who oppose the agency's raids on U.S. cities?
DHS Assistant Secretary for Public Affairs Tricia McLaughlin denied this flatly, telling CNN there is no database of domestic terrorists run by DHS. We do, of course, monitor and investigate and refer all threats, assaults, and obstruction of our officers to the appropriate law enforcement. Obstructing and assaulting law enforcement is a felony and a federal crime.
But the question keeps coming up. CNN reported last month. In January, a DHS official in Minneapolis sent a memo to investigations officers assigned to the state on temporary duty asking them to use a form to input information on protesters and agitators. The form, titled Intel Collection Non-Arrests, allows agents to fill in personal information of agitators and protesters who they encounter, reading from that CNN article there.
Adding to this is the fact that DHS has been collecting data in bulk. Reporters at 404 Media have ICE buying heaps of data and surveillance tools. They're buying tools that track the locations of hundreds of millions of phones every day. They're accessing Medicaid data and medical records. They have tools that monitor 200 plus sites and pull personal data from them. The outlet has reported that Palantir is working on a tool for ICE that populates a map with potential deportation targets, brings up a dossier on each person, and provides a confidence score on the person's current address.
There's all kinds of other tools, too. A recent Washington Post story detailed how federal tax dollars have been paying for ICE to have access to those tools, in addition to biometric trackers, drones, spyware, facial recognition software, mobile license plate readers, and more.
It seems, I don't know about you guys, but it seems like they have databases. And I should just point out quickly that when I see this, I think that the thing that stands out is I would be shocked, is my mind, that they don't. They've been talking about, these same type of people in MAGA have been talking about lists for as long as we've known them.
Our guest today put it plainly in a newsletter he published last week. Tricia McLaughlin is lying. According to his sources, quote, there are more than a dozen secret and obscure watch lists that Homeland Security and the FBI are using to track protesters, both anti-ICE protesters and pro-Palestinian ones, Antifa, and others who get labeled domestic terrorists. So with that, welcome to the show, Ken Klippenstein. I can see you here on the platform we're recording on. I've been in that home office. I've seen that room. I've met your dog, Ken. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. Thanks for having me, guys.
I want to ask you a question that was on my mind last night when I was thinking about having you on, and we haven't talked in a minute, but we go way back. What is the particular mental illness that makes someone want to be reporting on Homeland Security issues, that sort of thing? Because I think about the people who report on the radical right, and these is a particular group of freaks that includes the host of this show, and it's a particular kind of fetish. What is the mindset of a person who's like, my fetish in journalism is going to be national security?
Yeah, what kind of pervert are you, Ken?
Choosing, I'm going to focus on this particular thing, and it is a very particular thing.
I would say the secrecy around it is very tempting. It's like daring me to find out what it is. It's like when you're a kid and they had the CDs and it has the explicit lyrics and you're like, so what's in that? I want to see what that is.
Which words, huh?
There's that. And then I guess if I was to put it in a more lofty way, it's kind of like angers me that we're not allowed to know this stuff, because the more that I read about it, like there are obviously some legitimate secrets, but there's a lot that they just use the secrecy to keep stuff from coming out so they don't get embarrassed. There's so much that they use to prevent embarrassment.
Now that you mention that, I think that the Beat is inherently focused on like a part of government that is designed to keep secrets from people, right? I mean, is that true? It's like it more or less, right? It's supposed to keep us safe, but in reality, there's a lot of inherent covering up that just goes on.
Oh, totally. I always try to remind people the Department of Homeland Security is a pretty young institution. I'm older than it. We're all older than it. And everyone has just kind of accepted it as a fact of life. But this was an agency created in response to 9/11. And so its entire reason for existing and kind of worldview is counterterrorism. And because of that, they can justify all sorts of things because they're saying, well, we're keeping the country safe from terrorists. Like, we can't tell you X, Y, and Z. So the secrecy is just out of control. And I've seen it get worse gradually worse the entire time I've been reporting. So a lot of what we're seeing now is the execution of policies and systems and decisions that were made years ago and are absolutely being pushed to their limits by the current administration, but which the skeleton was already created beforehand.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've been reporting on national security stuff. Some years ago, you went independent, and I'm curious how that has changed your experience as a reporter covering this stuff. You have written about the fact that after some things you've reported on, the FBI has come to just pay you a little visit, You're not being charged with a crime, but we're
Nope.
just letting you know, XYZ. You certainly publish things that other newsrooms have declined to publish or have taken law enforcement's word for it. I'm just curious, since going independent, does that change how you tackle this?
I don't see how else I could have done some of these stories. I mean, the first FBI visit was over the J.D. Vance so-called dossier. It's this very fancy word for just the Trump campaign in 2024. Their research, they're kind of like oppo into potential candidates for vice president. And I knew that basically all the major outlets had this, and that I had heard that it had been hacked by the Iranians. That was something I mentioned at the top of the story and made sure that everyone was aware of as they read it. But the document was authentic. No one's ever said otherwise. And so I couldn't understand why this couldn't be released. I mean, it's just public positions. If there was innuendo in it, like stuff you couldn't substantiate, and there were questions that the foreign actor had added something to it, then I might not publish it. But that was never a question with this, because the whole list was just like, here's his position on this and why Trump doesn't like that. Here's his position on this. So, in the context of a presidential election, it seemed like a total just like layup in terms of, I mean, there are edge cases for sure in journalism. There's sometimes it's kind of like, is that public interest? Is it not? This wasn't one. So it seemed really obvious to me. And when I published it, I actually didn't really expect there to be much of a reaction, because the stuff was like, it was kind of interesting to see what Trump considered a liability. But beyond that, it wasn't like earth-shaking stuff. And so the FBI response seemed ridiculous, and obviously nothing happened. Nothing came of that, or at least that I know of. But that story in itself, I think, is a pretty solid example of what I couldn't have done at a traditional institution, because they all had it, and they chose not to publish it. And as I later learned, I'm friends with a lot of the people at the different major outlets. I don't want to criticize the individuals within it. I'm saying as systems, as institutions, they're broken. And they agreed with me privately, many of them, saying like, yeah, that should have been public. And they described to me how they had been contacted by, not they themselves personally, but their legal counsel and things have been contacted by the White House and told, this is a foreign influence operation. You've got to be careful about blah, blah, blah. And their sense was that that's why it wasn't published. So, and that's just one example. I've had several like that.
Well, the difference with a traditional newsroom, and there's give and take there, is that you typically have a standards and practices and a legal team and stuff like that. So you are on your own doing it, and anytime you do that, there's so much more personal risk. So I'm sure there's a lot of anxiety when you publish stuff like that.
For sure. But it's funny because it's like that was seen as so controversial. It's like did not feel like an edge case to me. Like I'll grant that there are edge cases, but that wasn't one. So it's been really nice in that way, and really important, I think, for national security, because a lot of the rules around journalism kind of break down because of like I'll mention stuff with one source that maybe at a traditional outlet they'd insist on two sources, that kind of thing, because the secrecy has just become so out of control that if you adhere to a lot of the traditional principles, you're just not going to be able to report on certain things. And again, it's a judgment call. Like I think it can make sense where you want to corroborate something or where you want to get additional blah, 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 or maybe you want to document or something. But in some cases, it just can't be done. And so I think you just be transparent about like, well, here's what I know and here's why I think this is the case, because otherwise it just won't get talked about. And that's been so much of what I focused on, is just trying to report on stuff that won't otherwise get covered.
So speaking of things that might not otherwise get covered, there's been a lot. How's that for a segue, Mike? Do you like that one?
I do.
You put a story out, an exclusive, a Kenny Clip scoop, secret ICE programs revealed, which sounds like the title of a questionable video on a questionable website. But it's about the
is ICE doing the kind of soft porn thing that like the IDF does with their female soldiers yet?
Well, they actually like to talk about part of ICE called Homeland Security Investigations. They have like their own internal FBI. And something the Trump administration has loved doing is branding their work around the child trafficking stuff and like child abuse, which is one of their responsibilities. But that's like how they've branded themselves for PR reasons, because who could be against that, when in reality, that's just one of a long list of things that they do.
A dozen internal government lists they don't want you to know about. Doctors hate Ken's secret for for publishing new information. No, you got a story. You got two sources that talked about the list that Trisha McLaughlin was adamant, caps lock, there are no lists. You've reported that, in fact, there are, which doesn't necessarily surprise me, especially given some of the other context we filled in up at the top about how, the government is just, partnering with tech companies, buying access to tools, and just has this enormous trove of data at its hand. To think that this is not organized somewhere that can be operated out of, it seems ridiculous. But can you tell us about what you've learned about some of these watch lists?
Yeah, so my curiosity for this came about a week or two prior when a source of mine in Border Patrol told me, oh, we got a directive. We're supposed to collect, or the field office is supposed to collect intelligence on any protester, anti-ICE protester that's taking pictures of us. And I said, why? And then he explained to me, well, their theory is that that's impediment in itself or could be impediment. So we're supposed to go and then hand that off to Intel, who's going to do a, quote, run-up. I said, well, what's a run-up? He's like, well, they'll take the, whether it's biometrics or license plate number or whatever identifier they can use and see if there's outstanding warrants, see what else we can find out about it. And I said, so what else do you try to find out about it? He says, well, I don't know, because I just, our office handles the first step. This would get handed to intelligence then, and I'm not sure what they do. And so that made me curious. And then after that, then CNN's story, I think they corroborated it, where they said that, I think they said ICE actually got a similar, I think they even got a document about it. But anyways, so after that, I was like, I wonder what Intel is doing to it. So I start talking to some people that, I interviewed a bunch of ICE and Border Patrol agents for a previous story. And so I met some people through that. And what I found was that there were actually a lot of people in the department that were uneasy with what's going on beyond what, like, the Trump administration puts this very confident kind of like swagger on where it's just never apologize for anything. And this person was completely in the right. But when you talk to people in the rank and file, that's not the case at all. I'm not saying that most of them are going to like join some anti-ICE protests, but like a lot of them are worried about legal repercussions down the road. A lot of them are worried about the effect that it's having on the reputation of the institution. And a lot of them, they believe in, removal of people who are here without legal status, but they're not down with the kind of counterinsurgency role that it's playing. And that's a word that one of them used. They said, we're having to fight a counterinsurgency. That's not why I joined this thing. Like, I don't like the protesters, but like, they should be allowed to say what they're saying. And maybe I find them annoying, but that's just America. Like, that's got to be how it is. I don't see why we're doing crowd control. I've never had to do crowd control before. And that was what I heard from so many people. So anyways, I started talking to these more senior officials, one that I knew, one that I had met more recently. And they, I told them what, like, so you're collecting all this information. Where does it go, essentially? And I said, well, it's retained in this ad hoc system of various databases, some of which were created after January 6th. But a lot of which have been created more recently under the Trump administration. And I said, so, how is this not widely known? They're like, well, we're still building it out. So it's like a pretty new effort. And like you were saying at the top, there's so much more data available to these organizations now because of changes in technology, not just commercially available that they can just purchase and not have to go through legal process to get, but also with AI, they can process unprecedented amounts of this data now too, where before they would have been just drowning in stuff and they wouldn't be able to find the needle in the haystack. So long story short, that's kind of the crash course that I was given in the different lists that they have, and they describe some of them. The code names are things like Blue Key, Grapevine, Hummingbird, Reaper, Sandcastle, Sienna. Most of this stuff is classified, and so the stuff you'll hear about, things like Fortify, that's kind of the first step in the process. So that's how they like first ingest they'll get biometrics. And then the question is, what happens after that? And these programs, I don't know that they're connected to Fortify in particular, but these things are like later in the intelligence process that you don't hear about. And it's how they're, it's just like a computer. You have to have an operating system, and on the operating system are different apps, and the apps do different things. And so I just learned how complicated this whole system of surveillance is. So complicated that the sources themselves were kind of like, oh, I'm going to have to go and look at which ones. I don't interface with them very often. And so I wonder how much most people in DHS, I don't think even know that this stuff exists.
What type of people are they keeping, on these databases, or to what degree? Let's say somebody, is considered an agitator at a protest or whatever, and they get whatever flagged by DHS or whomever. Somebody ferries a name or a face for facial recognition through to this system. What does it actually mean? Like, what is the actual difference? Because you hear a lot of people say things like regarding these protests now, would be like they can't kill us all, which is, I thought, a pretty stark thing to yell. It was like a really intense moment when people were saying they can't kill us all in the immediate aftermath of those executions. But like, there's so many people who oppose the Trump administration now, ranging from random boomers to people who perhaps hosts and co-hosts and whatever else, posting through it. People on the ground. People on the ground who go to protests all the time. Some of them want to agitate by throwing rocks. There's some who want to do nothing but hold signs. What do these lists actually mean, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Well, since they're all separate lists, they have separate purposes. They have separate criteria for why you can be included in them. What I can say is that the list that encompasses Americans is growing. It used to be primarily people that were here without legal status, just because they have fewer civil liberties, frankly, than American citizens do. But what you've seen, particularly under the Trump administration, but also after January 6th in part, is increasingly a focus on domestic threats as defined by whoever the president is. And after Trump came into office, he issued this national security directive called NSPM 7 that kind of redefined the counterterrorism priorities for the entirety of the federal government. And the way that this document defines it is kind of ambitious in a sense that it's like would encompass a lot of people. So just to give you a few examples, I'm quoting directly from the memo. It's going to sound like I'm being sensational here, but this is directly from the memo. Things like anti-Christian sentiment, anti-capitalist sentiment, anti-traditional family value sentiment. And so this is millions and millions of people.
I think the key word that scares the shit out of me there is sentiment. Not organizing, not attacks, it's sentiment.
Exactly. So in counterterrorism, it's kind of like pre-crime in that you're trying to preempt an attack before it's happened. And so since it hasn't happened, you don't have the predicate for a crime that you would in ordinary law, which is someone broke this law and here's the evidence and now we're going to go and subpoena or build more evidence. But in the case of counterterrorism, a crime hasn't yet happened, in the theory at least. I'm skeptical of all of this, but I'm in the minority here. A lot of people accept that counterterrorism is a necessary thing because the attack could be so horrifying that we need to suspend some of the things that we usually go through for conducting investigation. But in any case, since you don't have a crime yet, how do you find it? Well, you've got to look at speech essentially. And then how do you look at speech? You look at what's called indicators. And all those things that I was just listing before, those are what NSPM 7 defines those indicators as. And so it has just dramatically expanded the scope of what they look at for domestic, frankly, American citizen, quote unquote terrorism. And that's why a lot of these watch lists are popping up, because they need more. The watch listing system was always complicated, but it was primarily directed at groups like Al-Qaeda, ISIS, Al-Shabaab, foreign terrorist organizations. Now that they're American, they're having to create new systems. And that's why you're seeing these nascent lists that I've been describing, about which we know very little, because they're still making them like right now and still institutionalizing it. That was one of the creepiest things about it to me, was that it hasn't been institutionalized to the point yet that there can't be any guardrails, because it's like happening right now. And so that in some ways that can be the most dangerous.
It's like the AI technology itself,
Exactly.
which is frequently, lacking in any kind of oversight.
Exactly.
And one thing that stuck out to me, I just want to underscore here, you mentioned domestic terrorists. This is also a problem, considering the leader, our dear leader, labels pretty much anybody who is critical of him.
It's like reflexive. Yeah, it's crazy.
A domestic terrorist.
That's how they got into so much hot water with Renee Good and Alex Preddy's death, was because it was like 2 hours since the thing. And they're already like, oh yeah, this guy's a part of a terrorist cell and we're going to figure out, like, they don't even wait. It's crazy.
Well, they're also backed by an entire ecosystem of professional liars on social media who, get the bag largely to promote stuff like this. So you have your Andy Knows and these type of people who come out and, their main thing is to just portray regular protesters as domestic terrorists. So it's even if Trumpism isn't currently popular, even if the sort of the executions of Renee Good and Alex Preddy are extremely unpopular, there will always be like a sort of a 30% or 25 to 30% of the country that's kind of locked in, reinforced by these social media people and their, whoever on Fox, et cetera. Yeah.
And the social media people themselves, these influencers are influencing the intelligence products that are made in some of these agencies too. I mean, I've found some under FOIA that I've worked on where it's like, wow, they're literally reading these same types of groups that you were describing before. The Trump administration had an Antifa roundtable after the murder of Charlie Kirk, where it was literally...
we covered it a lot on here, as you can imagine.
No, and that was crazy because they brought all of the it was basically all the heavy hitters in the national security. Like, I thought it was just going to be some silly little thing.
Mixing
but it was
it up
like
with
a
Jack
serious...
Posobiec and...
Yeah, that's been one of the most alarming parts of reporting on this is getting close to the people like Sebastian Gorka, the senior director of counterterrorism in the White House, or Attorney General Pam Bondi, or Kristi Noem, getting sources that have to, work with them, brief them, and realizing to a great extent, they really believe this stuff. I thought it was rhetoric at first. I thought for sure it's like, oh, this is some pretextual thing they're saying. But to a great extent, they really buy, or they have started to believe it. I don't know much about a lot of them before the administration, but at this point, and after Kirk's murder in particular, it seems that was a really traumatic moment for a lot of the people in the admin who knew him personally. And because of that, I'm quoting from one of them. I think the Treasury Secretary said that it was like 9/11 for the Trump administration. So there's a lot of psychology going on here, and I wouldn't underestimate that.
I'm trying to imagine being like a career FBI agent and you're getting like text messages from Harmeet Dillon that are just like, can you open an investigation on this? And it's like the Nick Sorter just being like, Antifa stole my phone. And it's
not even far from a joke. I've talked to people that describe they have to. Yeah,
to what you're saying, it's like I really have to stress, it's like, yes, all of that stuff serves a strategic value for them, but so many people running the country right now sincerely believe that shit. Stuff that we look at and can obviously see as bullshit, sensationalized, partisan, whatever you want to call it. They seriously believe it. Ken, I had a question for you, more just for your take on this. Tricia McLaughlin, straight up was just like, there are no databases like this. Nope, no sirree. We've established that, yes, there are. That is a lie. And it's not even like, it doesn't even exist in the realm of plausibility in my mind. It's like, if you have all that data, it has to live somewhere. Of course, there's going to be a database of something, right? But why would they try to lie about that? I mean, is there a legal concern? Is there I mean, this administration is like very hell-bent on like saber rattling and going out in public and being like, we're coming for you, we're going to track you down and get you, you better be scared. What kind of motivation would they possibly have to lie about that, I guess?
Well, I can only speculate, but I think it has something to do with how politically ruinous the killing of 2 American citizens for whom not just millions of people look at them and say, hey, that looks like me or my brother or my neighbor, or just he looks like a regular guy. Including people in Homeland Security who I talk to who look at them and frankly, I think see just random white people and are like, wait, what? I thought we were going after immigrants or people that are here not legally or cartel members or whatever it is. I think it's just so politically damaging that they have to push back against the idea that this is what I think it clearly is, not just a war on immigrants, but a war on Americans as well. I got leaked a bunch of programs about that ICE is doing in secret. And what I was struck by was how many of them are focused on intelligence collection, not deportations necessarily. And so this is a much bigger program than I think what people imagine when they first think of ICE. I mean, it has become like I said earlier, a domestic counterinsurgency, and that's not popular because that starts to bump up against the equities of, frankly, people with some measure of privilege in this society who are not undocumented people that don't have very much power. And so if I had to guess, I would guess that's why they don't want them thinking that. In addition to the fact that, there are a lot of conservatives that I joked to my editor. I joked to him, I said, this is like an actual Alex Jones, like fever dream, some of this stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like Watchlists, and you just replace FEMA with a few of these names and it's the same thing. So maybe there's because Trump has branded himself so much like, we're going to fight the deep state. Maybe there's some branding issues there where
the branding issue seems like they're fucking creating a deep state.
They are, yeah.
It's a deeper state, though.
Yeah, it's a deeper state. I wanted to mention one thing here, which is you said that like some ICE agents may have been, or whomever working with ICE, may be uncomfortable with the expansion or the change in direction, right?
Yeah.
And obviously, I deeply disagree with those people who joined ICE and are part of the MAGA mission and the mass deportation now people. But enough people obviously believed in it for Trump to win as decisively as he did, right? I guess what scares me, it's not really a question, but a discussion point, is that if you scare away, who are the people who will not be scared away by that expansion? Because, to me, that the more you focus on domestic citizens, people who are from here, who have different politics from you, the more it starts to veer into obvious territory for, radical right people, people who may be predisposed to violence already, people who are predisposed to view other Americans as their enemies, people who may believe that we're already in a civil war, et cetera. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I would say, last week I interviewed like 8 or 9 ICE and Border Patrol agents because I genuinely was curious about exactly this question. How can they look at these protests and like be okay with it? And what I found was that in every case, I mean, this isn't a scientific sample. These are the people that responded to my queries or that answered the phones or that are going to talk to me. But still, I was expecting there to be a lot of disagreement. Every single one of them said, yeah, no, the agent that shot Alex Preddy was in the wrong there. And there was a range of attitudes about it. There were people that thought it was straight up murder. There were people that thought it was manslaughter. But every one of them thought, yeah, that shouldn't have happened. That was bad. That was wrong. And so when you talk to them, there is a range. And I would say broadly, you saw a younger cohort that is responding to this huge influx of cash that ICE now has. They've tripled their law enforcement budget, unprecedented amount of money, creating the largest law enforcement agency in the country, bigger than the FBI even. And it's those recruits that are responding to that push that are the most extreme. It seemed like, I'm generalizing a little bit because there were exceptions. I talked to a new recruit that actually was very uneasy with it himself and described other young recruits as being, quote, sketchy, or, he described them passing around a flask while they were supposed to be at a stakeout, like very unprofessional kind of stuff. But a lot of the older ones are like, it's so funny because you hear this discourse. No, literally. You hear this
I know, it's like they think they're on it like in 48 hours or whatever.
No, I talked to them and you hear this discourse around, oh, abolish ICE, it's like way too extreme. You talk to a lot of the older hands in particular, and they themselves, they obviously wouldn't use the words abolish ICE, but they'd say, they speak longingly about the days of when enforcement was handled by the Justice Department under INS. ICE is a new creation too, just like DHS. This was something that was created, it's younger than me, it's younger than all of us. And he said, it was a lot easier to do this job when we were at the Justice Department because ICE didn't have the reputation that it has now, where when I knock on someone's door for an investigation, people are like, oh my God, it's ICE. Don't talk to him. He's going to deport you. He said at Justice, we were actually a lot more effective at the like narrow question of like Trump brands the push as being focused on serious violent felons. Like among the older agents, I found a lot of wishing they could go back to that and focus on it more. And it was it was almost consensus. They described the younger ones as being really gung ho. Oh, and also when you watch these videos in Minnesota, I kept hearing from people that people go out on a volunteer basis. So most of those agents are people that chose to go out. Like a field director will say, okay, so who wants to go out there. Ordinarily, they just order you. It's like the military, like you have to go and do this thing. But now they're doing it on a volunteer basis, presumably because people don't want to go there, so they don't want people dragging their feet and not being down with the mission, potentially talking to someone like me if they send someone out there that's not down with the mission. So you get the really gung-ho people, first of all, from all the youth, and second of all, from the people that actually respond to these requests to go and be sent out there, because a lot of people don't want to.
Ken, we've been talking about these, the expanded surveillance that ICE is propping up, but domestic surveillance has been, I mean, certainly things are getting much more extreme now and kind of ugly, and tech has evolved and all of that to a degree where a lot of this is more menacing in a short-term, immediate way. But, American surveillance of, domestically has historically been a bipartisan project. How, in your mind, like, how does this fit into that timeline? Because it's so, I feel almost naive, right? Being, college age when the Snowden leaks came out and being like, man, people are really mad about all of this. Maybe it can change, but instead we've just seen the U.S. government expand its domestic surveillance. Something that I continue to get a kick out of is the FBI will, to this day, repeatedly stress they do not, do any monitoring or surveillance domestically, which is laughably
Just
untrue.
absurd, yeah.
Laughably untrue. And they just say it under oath with a straight face,
Yeah.
like before Congress every year. Obviously, this certainly feels like a huge escalation to me, but in the broader timeline, I mean, it feels concerning. How concerned should we be? Are you concerned?
I'm very, because I think a lot of people look at this and are sort of nihilistic about it. They say, well, they've got all my data. What do you want? But what's going to change is that because of artificial intelligence, they'll actually be able to go through that data. We historically have been afforded a measure of protection and safety in the obscurity and anonymity of them having terabytes and terabytes and terabytes of data. And they don't have time for an analyst to physically go through all of that and read everything. So they had to be targeted in the past. If AI produces what it looks like it's going to be able to produce for all its limits, they will finally be able to go through all of that and pull stuff out of it near instantaneously. And so that's going to be a complete paradigm shift for privacy that I don't think the world is ready for yet. And that these agencies are certainly not being, forthcoming about for us to have any sort of public debate. I mean, the Department of Homeland Security has, I'm not making this up, an AI Corps, like the Peace Corps. And these are officers that go around helping these different agencies create things like the watch lists that I was describing before. And, maybe most of the country wants that. I don't know what public opinion is on it, but we should have some kind of a debate. Certainly no one's been asked. And Congress doesn't seem, like you said, this is a bipartisan problem. That's not to say they're both the same. I think the Trump administration is pursuing this with a lot more alacrity than the Biden administration is. But when the Democrats were in office, they could have released a lot of these things. It was very frustrating to have to try to piece together what even the rules of engagement and the training manual says about ICE, because the stuff that was released under FOIA on the ICE website, the whole thing is blacked out. It's not a classified document. They just defer to law enforcement. And Benny Thompson, the head of the Homeland Security Committee, or any of the Democrats, they could have at any point said, okay, you have to release that. That has to be a public record so people can understand what the rules are. And, obviously the Republicans don't care either. And they're supposed to be doing Congress is supposed to be our guy to fight the secrecy intrinsic in the national security system of the executive branch. And they're just completely MIA.
I think regarding the AI Peace Corps or whatever the hell it was, obviously not War Peace Corps. I don't know.
AI Corps.
AI Corps. Yeah. It's
Couldn't have come up with
nothing dystopian about that. If you think that Elon Musk was willing to create a program to just facilitate revenge porn, right? I mean, imagine what they're able to do when they're allowed to, just sift through data, et cetera. I don't, I'm kind of, I don't really know how do you even respond to that. other than I remember Zizek saying once, sorry to bring him up, but I remember saying that he doesn't care about being spied. His attitude is that he doesn't care about being spied upon because he has nothing to hide, essentially, and then that you have something to hide, not me. And I guess maybe that's the only attitude we can possibly have until we get politicians who actually want to do something about this, because I don't really know what, faced with these people, I don't really know what we can really protect.
Yeah, this reminds me of the top. I mean, I've had to get a lot more aggressive about how I report on these things, and just because, like those watch lists I was describing before, if Congress is doing its job, Blue Key, Grapevine, Hummingbird, they would have a list of that, and I'm sure the agencies would say, "Oh, this is, national security information." It's like, yeah, but you can do an unclassified, just general summary, giving you the broad contours of what this stuff is for, just so people have the vaguest idea of what's happening, so we can have some kind of a debate about it. I'm not trying. I don't want to be too much of a stickler, but it's like there just doesn't seem to be any effort at all. Like, I understand oversight is hard. I'm sure Congress has a lot of other stuff it has to do, but it's like we don't even get the basics, and then the media is so just hidebound by all these conventions of journalism and all this stuff. It's like the national security system is just running circles around them, and it's a recipe for the worst case scenario between a slow and hidebound media and then a Congress that doesn't seem much interested in any of this.
Yeah, I mean, the civil liberties, civil rights advocacy critique of DHS, of national surveillance, of these programs has for decades been, sure, you might think you have nothing to hide, but what you're ultimately doing is giving the government the opportunity to come get you on fucking anything. Because a text message out of context, browser data, your phone location data, you were in the wrong place at the wrong time, maybe you're liable. You said, you heard that at ICE, they're trying to think about whether filming an agent in public counts as impeding law enforcement, right? So it's like the fear is always like, well, if you build these programs, you have to think about what they would be used for under, authoritarian or wannabe authoritarian ambitions. And I think, watching the news this week, seeing Tulsi Gabbard rolling up in Georgia, they're looking into tabulator tapes and voter files, still trying to relitigate the 2020 election and stuff. It's like, and then at the same time, you have, the FBI dragging its feet and like trying to protect Trump while releasing Epstein documents and stuff. It's very, I don't know, bottom text. I just, when you like lean back in the desk chair and take a look at this, it's hard not to for me to just be like, God damn, this sucks. And you take a much closer look at it than I do. I just looking back on it, I mean, do you have any overarching thoughts?
I would say, I've been writing about Homeland Security for the entire time I've known both of you, for like 10 years now. And it's something I always feel like I'm on Gilligan's Island, like jumping, trying to get the attention of the plane. Like, hey guys, look over here. This is bad. So I've actually had the opposite reaction, where I'm actually really heartened this past month, because I have never seen so much public articulate opposition to what the agency represents. And even Congress is having to make noises that they have never. They're powerful members, like the ranking member of the Oversight Committee, at least talking about relocating ICE to another agency, just like I've described. This is becoming a mainstream position now, and it's something that I've been, I've always felt like I'm out in the margins talking about for a long time. So I will say this, it's very unpopular, and that's why the secrecy is so important to fight back against, because something can't be unpopular unless people know it's happening. And I think that's part of why so much of it is secret, that they know that if people heard this stuff, they really wouldn't like it.
Well, Ken, you report on national security and, federal law enforcement. So we would be remiss not to take the opportunity here at the end to talk about someone we're huge fans of on this show, Kash Patel.
That's right.
Mike, you are we're both Kosh heads, but
Yes.
you are Kosh money.
Have you gotten one of the Kosh challenge coins? Apparently he has challenge coins.
No, but Madeline Peltz did make an engraving of the the coin for me in poster form, knowing how much I love to talk about Kosh.
If anybody is listening to this podcast, maybe you work at the FBI and this podcast is on a watch list that doesn't exist, wink, wink. And you can get us one of those challenge coins. I will pay top dollar. And I mean like
it's
20,
like it's
$30. I'll cover the shipping at least.
So I'm looking at it on my wall right now, what she made me. And it's basically like the Punisher. It's basically like the Punisher skull with two, because there's like 3-pronged teeth on the Punisher skull. And there are 2 revolvers on the side of it. And it says K with the $SH on the skull's head. So, part of the interest has always been the fact that he is from Garden City, Long Island, not far from where I grew up. And he also seems to be one of the laziest people we have ever put in a position of prominence in this country, probably ever. And when I say seems to be, I'm very curious about your thoughts on this. My thought about this is like, well, at least he's running the FBI, because things could be so much worse. We could actually have a lot of people just randomly arrested for ideology when this guy is not doing much. So just want to review some stuff with you, Ken, about Kosh's history and just get some of your thoughts. So in March of last year, he used the plane to fly to one of his homes in Vegas. Then he later used it to go on a weekend getaway to Nashville with his girlfriend. Then he went to D.C. later for a Washington Capitals game. My man used to be a high school hockey coach, I believe, and is a big hockey fan himself, despite being a little diminutive, I would say. Looks like a check might wipe him out. He went to UBS Arena to see my hockey team, the Islanders, with his plane. Then he went on a buddy hangout at a Scottish golf course, a luxury hunting trip at Boondoggle Ranch in Texas, multiple Nashville visits with his girlfriend. His girlfriend sang at a wrestling match, and the next day, Nashville. Now, this is from the New York Times about 10 or so days ago, if I may. So, Patel traveled to Britain to attend a secret conference of the Five Eyes, the intelligence alliance formed after World War II among the United States, United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. Jared, would you play the part of the senior executive recounting this to the New York Times?
Senior Executive 2 said, "Every May, there's a Five Eyes conference with the head of every intelligence agency. This year, it was in the UK. Kash Patel is going. In the lead up to that, his detail starts making crazy requests. He's got special requirements on everything, and the Brits are getting pissed. Before the conference, his staff says he's unhappy because he doesn't like meetings in office settings. What he wants is social events. He wants premier soccer games. He wants to go jet skiing. He'd like a helicopter tour. Everyone who heard about this was like, hold on, is he really going to ask the MI5 director to go jet skiing instead of a meeting? The schedule is set, and every Five Eyes partner is doing this. They can't just say that he's not participating and instead wants to go to a premier soccer game. This is a job, guys." His staff only cared about 3 things: what his meals were, when his workouts would be, and what his entertainment would be. The biggest plan...
That's okay. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead, continue.
The biggest plan is how he's going to get his girlfriend in there so she can go to Windsor Castle. He's got Nicole Rucker as his assistant, like a true executive concierge. And when she's not getting the food or the workout she wants, she'll just start screaming at people. Make it happen.
Just curious for your initial thoughts on this guy, just in general.
Yeah, I think the clownishness is sort of an interesting paradox because He's actually a very spooky guy in the sense of his experience in the national security system. I did a story on him, and I was surprised to learn. I thought it was going to be sort of like Pam Bondi, where it's like, not the right kind of experience, just an empty suit. And he's kind of the opposite of that. Okay, check this out. So it's from a story I did on him when he was first nominated. He started out his career 2014 to 2017. He was a trial attorney for the Justice Department's National Security Division, a liaison to JSOC, focusing on counterterrorism, and then was the director of counterterrorism in the NSC 2020, and then chief of staff to SecDef Christopher Miller in 2020. Also, so it's like actually a lot of experience in these agencies, which is why it's so strange that he seems so disengaged from a lot of it. Like when I read his memoir, his book, what was it called? Government Gangsters.
Yes.
And I was struck by how not ambitious it was. The entire thing was focused on these figures from I think he published it in 2024. This was like a campaign book for, maybe getting a picked if Trump wins. And it was completely retroactively focused on all these old names that I could scarcely remember. And it's supposed to be in my field or whatever. It was like Nellie Orr and Bruce Page and Strzok. And it was like a blast from the past of all of this. And it's like, you're going to be the FBI director. You could do anything you want. What do you want to do? And I was just struck at like how narrow and short-sighted the vision. It was like, we're going to get rid of headquarters and send people to the fields. And it's like, and to do what? And there was just nothing there.
Yeah.
We want to go jet skiing, man. I don't
Maybe
want
that's why, yeah.
I don't want to, I'm so sick of this boardroom type shit, man. Let's get on some jet skis, try to figure some shit out that way, order some food, get Alexis in here. She wants to go to Windsor Castle. Yeah, I think maybe he just got this job and now he doesn't give a fuck. He's like, everybody's trying to make it to some place in their mind.
Yeah.
And then like we keep rolling it forward where it's like, oh, I want to publish an article. I want my book to come out. Then there's another goal. I think he's hit his goal. I think he's like, yeah, man, I got it, man.
Well, the FBI director doesn't oversee like day-to-day operations, right? It's the deputy director who until recently was Dan Bongino is the one who's like, when shit goes down, that's the phone that rings first. And the FBI director, like, the way I understand it is mostly to sit in like SCIF meetings and like coordinate with other agencies. Is that right, Ken?
Yeah. I mean, he can't personally run around and micromanage things.
Yeah. So
right.
He probably got in that position and was like, damn, this is sick, actually. Like, everything I do is classified. And I've got a plane and this fucking rocks.
One of the only things I can remember him working on was during his testimony to Congress, they asked about the Charlie Kirk murder, and he was talking about how they were going to find the network responsible for it and how they're busily working on producing intelligence, and he's personally
the network. The network. You know what? I mean, I don't mean to like take us aside, but this is like classic Andy Ngo shit. Like, Jonathan Cho, Andy Ngo, Jack Posobiec stuff. There is no fucking network. I mean, like, they can keep looking, but this is just what I can see. They're not going to find.
Yeah, there clearly isn't. I just don't understand.
Fucking network.
This is one of the most straightforward cases I can think of in history, where it was like one guy. Like, where does this come from?
He's still allegedly. We still, he hasn't been convicted.
Yes,
Robinson. But I mean, the idea that we talked a little bit of this on our last premium as well. So apologize to our diehards for reiterating this, but Jonathan Cho did a video where he made a big thing where he showed people from like PSL. I don't know if you're familiar with that socialist group,
the leftist,
yeah, and this is some poor folks just hauling some signs printed out of the back of like whatever pickup truck to do it, and he's like, look at this. Look at this, look at this, look at this, look at this, look at this. Here they go. Look at this. Okay, I found it. They're the paid agitators and whatever. When you say that you were surprised by some people actually believing in some of their shit, like these people have taught themselves to believe not only are leftists interconnected in some sort of weird conspiracy, like they're meeting in private rooms talking about, okay, who's gonna assassinate Charlie Kirk, who's willing to take that hit for our team, our solid team together. not only did they convince themselves of that, but also that it is extraordinarily well funded by elites that all, if they exist, pretty much fund Trump.
So is it basically, I've seen basically every principal figure in the national security apparatus from the admin has talked about how the protests must be organized because the signs look a little too nice, or what? Like, do they really not get that? There's always some org there, and they'll pass out a few of them, but like that doesn't mean they ran the whole thing. They don't know that.
I'm going to ask Jared to do like less editing on this podcast. So that way they're like, oh, it's obviously not a $14 million operation.
Just do the Asmund Gold
George
thing.
Soros.
Just smudge your hand on the camera and have some clothes strewn around in the background.
Well, it's I mean, to the point we were talking about earlier of them sincerely believing this stuff. Kash Patel so the thing that has been like popping off since federal agents killed Alex Preddy, within an hour of it happening, you had Cam Higbee, which was one of these people at the Antifa roundtable, being like, I clicked the link on a Minneapolis community anti-ICE signal chat, and boy, oh boy, this sure looks criminal. And then a few days later, Kash Patel goes on Benny Johnson's podcast, which, first thing, the director of the FBI on Benny Johnson's podcast is that should be like, take a picture of that and hang it in the museum in your head just to remember, like, whenever we eventually get out of this point of history, like what it was like.
Yes.
And he tells Benny Johnson, he's like, man, dude, as soon as I saw Cam Higbee's post, I said, yeah, we're opening an investigation straight up. Straight up, man. It's like that. It seems to be that like all these people, while simultaneously doing all this, terrifying, alarming stuff, like building up these giant databases with ICE and everything, like so much of that seems to be informed by the fact that the people at the top of these agencies just like sit in like a Clockwork Orange thing and like absorb, whatever version of TweetDeck still exists. And it's wild, man. It's wild.
Ken, did you know that Kash Patel really, really likes to order Uber Eats?
Is that true?
Yeah.
It's true. You didn't watch the Katie Miller show?
I can't keep up with all this stuff, man. There's so
from
much.
Christmas.
No, I didn't
Katie
see that.
Miller show.
We covered it on our premium, but we just wanted to bring it back for you.
Yeah, we've got a clip, and we're going to be looking for your hot take here.
The ideal date night.
Staying in,
Yeah, I was going to say at this point, probably like doing nothing.
sitting on the couch, watching whatever, sleeping.
What's the best restaurant you guys have been to together in DC?
In DC, oh,
In DC together.
that's up to
Or
you.
I guess we'll go across the United States.
Yeah, they don't know because he's never there.
United States.
Our favorite restaurant is Mizumi in Las Vegas. We go there as often as we can, but Las Vegas has the best food in the country, so we're spoiled in that manner. But DC, I don't know. What do you like? I'm basically, when she's not here, I'm, running the Uber Eats tab up because you get home
Running
as you
it
and
up,
Steven
man.
know, at like 9 p.m. and you're like, I don't have the time to cook, so whatever's convenient.
And then if I'm in town, I do cook. So
You like Philomena a lot.
I do. I like
What's the best thing she cooks?
By the way, I just wanted
Chili.
Jared. We can stop here. I think Ken had a visceral reaction when he said the best food in America is Las Vegas.
Don't know about that one. The thing that stood out to me most was the what do you do? Nothing. It's like it just reminded me of like Office Space. Like what would if you could do anything? I would do nothing. But it's the
Sitting
FBI
around
director.
sleeping. I'm sitting around. I'm sleeping. I'm doing nothing, man. I'm just whatever. And then when they make me work, I'm just running up that Uber Eats tab. Just 2-3 things. Maybe when it all comes, I'll just pick which one I want to eat and throw the other ones out.
What kind of things do you like to do in DC? Like where the FBI is. And it's like, man, I don't know, but like Vegas fucking rocks, dude. We go to
It's awesome.
Vegas.
I lived in DC for like 2 years, and I could list some favorite restaurants. It's like this guy is the director, and he has like no idea. Like what? There's some pretty good restaurants in
There's some excellent spots for lunch as well. District Fishwife, which is a great place for a po' boy if you want one.
Yeah, we've got one more clip here, Ken, before we close out. We're also
we're playing like some greatest hits because we just love these clips so much. We just want to get Kenny Clip's take on them.
Yeah, we want to get your professional insights as a veteran,
national security,
seasoned national security reporter here. This is a clip. He's still talking to Katie Miller here, and he's talking about how he keeps himself entertained, what kind of stuff he likes to watch.
TV right now.
Oof. Really crappy Netflix series with all the travel you have to do. So you just like load it up with whatever's relevant. But then there's some really good ones out there. Paramount's crushing it with like Mayor of Kingstown, Tulsa Kings, and Landman. And then
this is an audio podcast, but I just want to point out that Ken looks horrified.
Well, you asked for my opinion as a national security reporter, and something I daydream about is like, oh, how cool would it be if I could get read into all the stuff that, say, the X agency has.
He's
FBI,
interested in getting read into what's on Paramount Plus.
Well,
that's what he's
picture you read all these, you learn all these secrets, and it's like, wouldn't you then be like, oh, I didn't know that about history, and then you'd want to go and watch movies about it, or like, wouldn't it trigger some kind of curiosity about the world?
No.
Dude, well, one of the quotes that is, a former FBI person gave the New York Times in that big piece they did a week or two ago was, I guess, Kash Patel allegedly telling somebody like, man, dude, I don't read. Just tell me about it.
Well, that happened.
Yeah, man, if it's not on Paramount Plus or to a lesser extent, much lesser extent, Netflix, don't even bother, man. It's really too much for me.
So Ken, here, it's your fantasy. You're about to get read in on like what Kash Patel watches. Ready?
And then there's just, random things that come in, the document. I'll watch anything related to hockey. So, stuff like that.
Do you watch any shows now that have the FBI and you're like, that's just not accurate? That's not how we do it there.
No, I guess like a doctor watching ER or something.
All right. We revisited a very important piece of audio for you.
I just can't get over it. It's like their main thing is secrets. Like, look at everything around Epstein, and now you get to know the secrets, and it's like, I don't really care about that stuff. I don't want to think about it any more than I have to. It's I would want to think about that all the time if I could know all the secrets.
Maybe
right?
To give somebody something optimistic before we leave here is, okay, yes, we're probably all on a list, but the head of the FBI doesn't know how to read it, or won't, right? So,
you're joking, but I think there's a point. No, I think there's something to that, which is like they're going to heighten the contradictions in a profound way that is impossible to ignore, and that's what you were seeing happen now. Because I have been trying to heighten these contradictions myself for the last 10 years and had very limited success. And the Trump administration is doing what I could only dream of accomplishing in terms of like forcing the public to look at this disgusting system that exists. Which
maybe the people who argued that, like, or if you remember going back to 2016, that like, it's like, well, the reason to vote for Trump over Hillary if you're a leftist. This is if you remember, there were people who said this.
Yeah. No, I
were like, that it would it would shake the system up so much.
Well, I'll say this:
that like things would that a new future would suddenly. Maybe they're going to be like, it's like 10 years from now, we're going to turn around and we're going to have like flying cars, and everybody, and those people are going to be like, from the Simpsons.
And Trump is like this founding father level figure for like ushering in this era of prosperity.
Thank you, sir.
No, I'm not even joking. That is kind of my, obviously I'd rather it not be this, but now that we're here, it was heartening to see the demonstration. I mean, I live in the Midwest. It's really cold out here. It is wild to me that many people turned out for an issue.
It's wild. It's cold all over the country right now, but I've been in Minneapolis, and it's like a whole different ballpark.
It had to be negative 20, right?
Other than like Montreal, I have never been in a place like in the winter where it was colder. Like, people have to basically go underground for most of the time, and people were not doing that. They were out there protesting. That's why everybody loves that one clip of that guy who turned out to be a bookstore owner who is like in his 70s, and he is like, I'm so mad and whatever. And then he goes and walks off into the tear gas like it's no problem. It's really giving the Midwest a renaissance. My sister was like, I'm going to move to Minneapolis.
So I live in Madison, Wisconsin, where it's equally cold, and I've gone to some of the demonstrations, just talk to people to get a vibe check, and what struck me was there were so many normies. It was so many not the usual leftists that you would see at these things. There were so many just regular, just moms.
That is a good thing too. That is a good thing too, because it not just national security issues, but the other issues that we care about. In terms of economics, stuff like that, and just how money is distributed in this country, how we, how to what degree we focus on each other's healthcare and stuff like that. New things may be possible if we're able to channel all the resistance to Trump in a new way. I do think people are more open. Look at Bill Kristol, man.
It's crazy, yeah.
No,
seriously.
Bill Kristol is like, he tweeted today. I'm sorry to interrupt you. You go. But he tweeted, he was like, instead of, whatever, 260 Democrats in Congress, give me like 260 people from the Minneapolis Yellow Pages. It's the most hardcore thing I've ever heard.
No, it's very different from the first admin because they're just stomping their foot on the gas pedal and doing these, just today, like Don Lemon, like normal people see that stuff and it just looks crazy in a way that I think a lot of this stuff was going on behind the scenes more. In the first administration, there was a little bit more, what do they call it? The adults in the room made sure that stuff didn't tumble out into the public like this. Yeah. And now it has, and that's partly scary, but it can also have some opportunities for public engagement that we're seeing.
Yeah, the Don Lemon thing, just to talk about that briefly. I'm sure a lot of people are like, in the past, right? Don Lemon's cringe, and he does this kind of like anti-Trump. It's off now. He was obviously covering that thing, and we know what his political bias is or whatever. But for MAGA to claim political bias in some way in this, if that's what they're going to try to do to like make him into a protester, the level of hypocrisy with their own people is startling. Don Lemon has more integrity than those folks, and there are a lot of black people that I saw on social media were like really angry about it too. This is like, these are black journalists.
Yeah, it just reminds me of a post I saw last year around the Jimmy Kimmel stuff, where it's like, the most infuriating part of the second Trump administration is that like you're forcing me to defend Jimmy Kimmel and Don Lemon and Stephen Colbert and like all of these people. It's like, God damn it, man. Jerome Powell, you're going to make me defend Jerome Powell. You've got to be kidding me. We will not be defending Jerome Powell on this podcast. But anyway, yeah. Ken Klippenstein, where can people check out you, your work, all that good stuff?
I'm at kenklippenstein.com. And if you have any tips, my Signal number is in the bio of my Twitter, or I guess it's X now.
Wait, is Ken Klippenstein?
Yes, but
oh my God, dude! How long have we been friends? I feel like such an asshole.
I come from a family where different languages are spoken, and so the point of language is to be understood. You don't have to get it exactly right, as long as you're roughly in the neighborhood. So I don't really mind.
Oh my God, dude, that's going to keep me up tonight. Well, thanks for joining the show. It's been a pleasure.
Before we go, Jared, I just want to say that we will be on our next premium. We're going to be revisiting Katie Miller's podcast because she had a very interesting guest this week.
All right. Well, until then, for premium listeners, we'll see you Thursday. For everyone else, we'll see you next Monday. Take care.
Thanks, Ken.
Thanks, guys.